One of my New Year's resolutions for this channel for 2015 was to delve more into an artist or band's back catalog before going into their new one. You know, to stay well informed, stuff like that. So before listening to this new Imagine Dragons album, I decided to give a listen to their early work, you know, their EPs from before Night Visions. And as I expected on their self-titled one and Hell in Silence and stuff like that, it was a bit more stripped back, a bit more rock-oriented, which I, again, expected. But then I came across this 2008 EP that just leaked online last December, and
I can see clearly, I can see clearly, I can see clearly, I can see clearly,
I can see clearly, I can see
clearly what you mean. Oh my dear, it's a pistol whip to my broken head, and the stars are spinning, so I picked one up and put it on my shoulder. Look, look, look.
I love you, Internet. It's like Aim and Ignite, but not good. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Spin It Reviews, and today I'm going to be talking about the new Imagine Dragons album called Smoke and Mirrors. I'm going to repeat something that I said in my Foster the People review last year, namely that top 40 music has gotten a lot better lately. Now don't get me wrong, there's always going to be some crap thrown in there, inevitably, but with this influx since around 2011 of bands and artists that actually feel like legitimate bands and artists getting these bona fide smash hits, in my opinion, we're in a way better position than we were maybe a decade ago. And one of the best examples of this, in my opinion, alongside Lord and Gautier and Fun and a few others like that, is Imagine Dragons, the LA-based pop rock band that absolutely dominated radio since around late 2012 when they first broke through with the song It's Time, which they later topped with the even bigger smash hits Radioactive and Demons in 2013. These songs are both really refreshing in the mainstream for just how grand and atmospheric and genre-bending they were, being held together by Dan Reynolds' very emotive powerhouse vocals. I mean, you had one song driven by a mandolin riff being followed up by one driven by dubstep wobbles, and despite some overplaying, these songs are both really well-received pop songs, and for good reason. Their full-length debut, Night Visions, was just full of that, and it ended up being one of my favorite albums of 2012. So naturally, I was really interested in what they would do next, especially following up this massive waves of success. However, in my opinion, Smoke and Mirrors is the textbook case of a sophomore slump. And I know this is a bit of a cop-out, but just because this is such an unfocused, mixed bag of an album, I gotta do this review track by track. The opener, Shots, was one of 3 pre-release singles to come out from this, and in my opinion is the best. Mostly because it doesn't try too hard to be all anthemic, and just focuses on being a great, catchy pop rock song. I love the way the guitar leads balance against the bubbly synths, and the little flashes of falsetto actually kinda work here. We'll get to that later. It's also one of my favorites lyrically, from what I'm gathering talking about the regret he feels after losing touch with his loved ones after getting famous, sort of feeling like it gets in the way of these meaningful, personal relationships. Gold, on the other hand, left me a little worried. Sure, it's got decent enough melodies, but the mix is just terribly cluttered, with all this clattering percussion, and this one repeating annoying vocal snippet that honestly sounds more like Dan hiccuping than anything else. Plus, the lyrics don't so much reference the King Midas story as it does just kinda recap it without really adding anything. Just kinda left me scratching my head and asking, what's the point? Not to mention that the chorus goes on way too long, just focusing on driving the name of the song into your skull. Personally, if you want to hear a version of this that in my opinion works a little better, my buddies in Shrink the Giant did one a little bit ago, which I'll link in the description if you're curious. I'm kind of conflicted on the title track, Smoke and Mirrors. I mean, the song's pretty well written overall, despite some semi-generic affirmation and uncertainty-themed lyrics. The problem for me is that Dan nearly kills this song with a lot of oversinging and straining, especially toward the chorus, that just doesn't fit with the song's tone at all. It's jarring, unpleasant, and frankly, the song might as well be subtitled R.I.P. Headphone Users. I'm So Sorry is probably the first great surprise here. Now, the band did say they were going for more of a rock direction this time around, as opposed to Night Visions when they embraced more of that hip-hop side, but I still was not expecting this kind of snarling garage rock stomper. It's by far the heaviest thing they've ever done, with these huge riffs and over-the-top rock star wails toward the end of the chorus. My only real complaint is that the piano-led bridge toward the middle does kind of kill the momentum, but other than that, it's an awesome track. But then we get to I Bet My Life, the lead single that worried me to begin with. The song just tries way too hard to be all anthemic and get into romantic comedy movie trailers, and the mix is again so cluttered and packed with these unnecessary sound effects during the verses. I guess you can call it Centipede Hurt Syndrome. Also, is it me, or does the chorus sound a little unfinished? Like they're just repeating one line throughout the whole thing with this 4-syllable stuttering, and repetitions of the titular line that seem to come in like a couple counts after they should. I don't know, it just feels like they conceived this song in an on-the-spot jam, but just never took the time to refine it. It's just really awkward to me. And we continue this downward slide of quality with Polaroid. In my opinion, the worst song on this album, by far, driven by this dinky little xylophone or glockenspiel or whatever, mind-numbingly basic melodies, and some of the stupidest lyrics this band has ever written, like, I must shut up, sit down, and I am the color of boom. Now, I will put money on this. There is no stupider lyric that I will hear in 2015 than I am the color of boom. Oh, and Dan sounds like on this track that he's the host of some bad kids show, which doesn't help. At first, I had no idea what to think of the song Friction, with the Middle Eastern sounding synths, and Dan almost sounding like he's singing in some Caribbean accent in the verses, at least in the first one, but then it just sort of won me over after a few listens from just what a glorious mess it is, especially when the heavier guitars come in during the chorus, which in my opinion does really bring the song together. But then we dip right back into safeness with It Comes Back to You, a generic, saccharine, poppy love song begging to be a single in the worst way possible, complete with the 4 chords of pop and these oh refrains for added desperate radio-friendly effect. Oh, and before I forget, the Steve Miller Band called, they want their Fly Like an Eagle synths back. I can basically say the same things about Dream that I did about the title track, only in this case the vocal problems are the exact opposite. I don't know who told Dan he sounds good when he's whimpering, but they need to be fired, like, yesterday. Not to mention that with how the instrumentation goes, I sort of had this scenario in my mind where Dan was playing this decent piano ballad in the studio and just happened to be recorded, and then the producers took that recording and just put stock Imagine Dragons instrumentation preset number 6 over it with some strings for added sappiness. Now, at this point, I feel like I should address a sort of recurring complaint I've had about this album. Look, Dan Reynolds is a great singer. In fact, he was one of my favorite things about Night Visions, but he's just trying out so many things with his voice that just conflict with his strength so much, and for the most part, it just does not work. Going a lot more positive, Trouble just might be my favorite song on this album. It's definitely one of their more eccentric moments with these fast-paced snare-heavy drums and high-pitched piano. In a way, it sort of reminds me of some of the best cuts off Vampire Weekend's last album, which was one of my favorite albums of 2013, and shows that, like with one of my favorite early Imagine Dragons songs called Leave Me, this album is at its best, in my opinion, when the band's not afraid of just having fun and not taking themselves 100% seriously. The next track, Summer, is nothing incredibly different, but it's got a nice groove in the rhythm section, and the jangly guitar leads do add a lot of fun to the song, which I appreciated, but just to sound like a broken record with my problems with the song, which I can overlook here for the record, is that the higher-pitched vocals don't really sound great. and even sound a little nasally at points. Again, not really a good fit for him, but still a good track nonetheless. Hopeless Opus is another great one, anthemic in all the right ways. It actually wouldn't have really felt out of place on Night Visions, outside of little splashes of piano, and the rare instance of an Imagine Dragons guitar solo, which actually works really well here, and I'm actually sort of getting a Queen vibe from and just how over the top it is. Let me know if I'm the only one who thinks that. And finally, I'm not sure if I love The Fall as much as Nothing Left to Say as far as these epic, expansive 6-minute closers go, but I still think it works really well. The build-up as it goes along is great, and it acts as a really satisfying ending to the album, in addition to one that does work pretty well on its own. So yeah, Smoke and Mirrors is a bit of a mixed bag, to say the least. To me, Imagine Dragons are in the kind of spot where they just don't know what they want to do with their music. There's a big difference between being diverse and being unfocused, and to me this thing falls firmly in the latter. They want to make safe pop songs to keep relevance on the radio, but they also want to rock out and let the band shine through, but they also want to be 100% serious and indie and experimental, but they also want to be whimsical, I guess. It's the kind of confused sophomore slump that's decent overall, I guess, but still a big step down from the debut, and I'm gonna give it a 6.5. Look, before you guys start jumping down my throat, remember that I am a fan of this band, and only want to see the best from them. I just personally felt disappointed from this, that's all. That being said, I am aware that this could be like a transitional album from them, and I wouldn't be surprised if the third album a couple years down the road does fare a lot better. So, if you guys have given this album a listen, what do you think about it? Do you agree with what I had to say, disagree, have any feedback about the channel in general? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to be civil. Share this around with anyone who might be interested, like the Facebook page in the description for updates, commentaries, music news, and reviews of albums I don't really get around to here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of Spin It Reviews.